Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Alteryx Intelligence Suite webinar for the analyst. I am Nora Ann Westarter, and I'll be going through the different tools and what you can do with them. So let's get started. So as I said, I'm Nora Ann Westarter. I'm a Tableau and Alteryx consultant at the Information Lab. Just a bit of more information on who we are. So we are Alteryx and Tableau Gold partners. We are actually training analysts in using Tableau and Alteryx before they actually go on long-term consulting, so 6-month consulting projects in so far the UK and Europe. As a data school, we've done over 37,000 days of consulting since 2015. And we also have a core team, of which I am a part of, that has done over 10,000 days since 2010. Currently, we are around 162 consultants, but I think this company is growing very quickly. Okay, so for today, I'll give you a brief introduction on the Alteryx Intelligence Suite, the two different parts of the Alteryx Intelligence Suite, which is machine learning and text mining. I'm going to focus on the traditional way that we used to do these things in Alteryx, and then focus on how easy this is now with the new Alteryx Intelligence Suite. Lastly, we are going to finish off with a Q&A. Okay, so just to give you a bit of background around the Alteryx Intelligence Suite. So you purchase 2 sets of tools that are added to your already big library of tools. So the first set of tools is the machine learning set, which we'll look at a bit later. And then there's also the text mining set. Okay, so a very common question that we get is machine learning or text mining possible without the Alteryx Intelligence Suite? The answer is yes, but you do need background knowledge on using, let's say, text mining or machine learning, and definitely some custom coding in R or Python. So let's focus on the first part, which is machine learning. So what is machine learning? So it is an artificial intelligence branch. It's where a system learns from data to identify patterns and then make decisions based on these patterns. The idea is to have minimal human intervention in making these models work. So for many of us, this seems like a big black box that you put data into and play around until it gives you approximately the right answers that you want. Sometimes it does feel that way, but hopefully this will show some light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so what is machine learning beyond this? Don't be frightened off by the big plot. It's not too complicated once we get to explain what it is. So you approach any machine learning problem with a business question. Then you look at your data and decide, is it label data or not? I'll be going into a deeper definition in this very shortly, so don't be scared if you don't know what label data is. But this defines whether you are doing supervised learning or unsupervised learning. And then to take this further, I'll only be focusing on the supervised learning in this section. This is because the Alteryx Intelligence Suite machine learning tools are only focused on supervised learning. Okay, so let's take the bottom half of this chart away. So supervised learning can be broken into two, let's call it categories again. So you can have a labeled field that's either a category or a quantity. So what exactly is labeled data? So it is what we call training data. This is the data that you give your model to train from before you actually apply the same model to data that you don't know the label to. So for example, I have a list of fruits and I have the shape and the color. So in this case, I have a class, which is my label. So when it's an elongated fruit and it's yellow, I label it as banana, as a banana, or when it's round and red, I label it as an apple. So I feed this data to my model, and the model learns from this so that when I give it a shape and a color, it will tell me whether it's a banana or an apple. Okay, so just to do this visually, so I give my model a bunch of characteristics on apples and bananas, in this case, only shape and color. So I train my machine learning model. So when I give it new data, there's my new data, with only shape and color, it will know that an elongated and yellow fruit will qualify as a banana, or a round and red fruit will qualify as an apple. Okay, this can be extended much further. So this can be used to analyze churn. So what you do is have a characteristic data set of people, and whether they, let's say you have a characteristic set of people and their cell phone contract churning rate. So if someone has churned, you can analyze what their previous cell phone usage was and so on. And you can actually train your data to pick up that pattern and recognize when someone might be churning in the near future, sorry. And then be able to identify them and maybe get into contact with them before they actually drop their cell phone contract. You can also have linear data. So what we looked at now was class data set or class label. You can also have a regression label. So where we're looking at house prices, for example, and based on certain properties, for a specific house, you can estimate its potential cost. Okay, we'll be going into that a bit further in a second. Okay, so let's look at a machine learning model. So what I'm going to do is look at a traditional Alteryx method of doing machine learning. So I'm just heading to Alteryx. Okay, so what I'm going to do is analyze or train a model with house price, like I have a data set on house prices in India or house sales. So there are different properties that we are going to look at in each case, and the cost or the price in Indian rupees per square foot of that specific property. So what we have is the who this property was posted by, whether it was under construction, an RERA approval or not. I'm not sure what this field is, but we won't focus on that too much now. The number of rooms that the property has, the type of property, how big the property is, whether the inhabitants were ready to move or not, whether it's a resale, and then the address, longitude, and latitude, and of course, the target price. So the target price in this case is our label. So I built this model out before the webinar because it takes a while to run and do the whole process. And because of time constraints, we're not going to get everything done if I had to do it live. So the first step in any model, in implementing any model, is basically a data investigation. So this is important because you need to know, are there any correlations between your data? How healthy is your data really? Are there any nulls that you need to work with or exclude from your data? Is it possible to use the median in comparing or if there's nulls, use the median when analyzing or implementing that specific record in your model. So in this case, I am looking at, so I'm using my association analysis tool, which is under my data investigation set of tools in Alteryx. So I'm just using association analysis, and I select my target field as my price. And I want a Pearson product moment correlation analysis in the end. So after the analysis has been done, I want to see if there's any correlation between the fields so that I can either include or exclude specific fields from my model. So this is a correlation matrix that is constructed by the tool itself. And in it, you have your different fields listed against one another. So you are expecting a diagonal field across the square, just where the square footage is compared against the square footage. So you'll expect a value of 1. So what we can already make out from this correlation matrix is the fact that the price is highly correlated with the square footage. So it is something to keep in mind when including the specific field in your model, so that it doesn't skew or exclude the other, or let's say overshadow the other aspects of your model. What I'm going to do is keep this field, so it's the square footage and the price that are highly correlated. I'm going to keep this field in my model because I'm expecting the two to actually be highly correlated and influence each other. But I know the size of a property will also be a high contributor to the cost in the end. So for that reason, I'm going to keep it in my model. Now I am going to sample a certain set of my data. So 80% I'm going to use to train 3 different models. I'm going to go into how I'm going to choose those models very soon. But what I want to focus on first is isolating 80% to physically train the different models. And then I'm going to test those models using the other 20% of my data. So since this is a regression analysis, the different models that are available for us are these. Okay, so the support vector machine, neural network, ridge regression, random forest, or lasso. Not all of them are available in Alteryx as a specific tool. So for now, we are going to use the linear regression, decision tree, and forest model in our analysis. So what you do is run your 80% training data through each model. And after it's run, you actually use a compare tool. The model comparison tool to compare the 3 different models and see which model fits your data the best. So I'm currently looking at the report output from my model comparison tool. And in it, you'll see your 3 different models listed. And I'm going to look at the correlation from the model to my data. So firstly, you'll see that the linear regression model has a very low correlation. So we are not going to even consider that compared to the other 2. Then we have the decision tree and also the forest model. So in this case, the forest model has a higher correlation so the correlation is 90%. And then we also want a model where the root mean square error is the smallest. Okay, so in this case, again, it is the forest model that wins. So that is why we are choosing the forest model to continue. So what this means is we've trained our forest model, and now we're going to use it to predict house prices based on the different properties of the properties that we give it. So now we're going to use the fact that it's under construction. We are going to use the ERA approval field, the number of rooms, the type of property, the square footage, whether the person was ready to move or not, whether it's a resale, and the address. There's a question that just came in. Yes, there is. So Liu asked, is there an option for parameter tuning? Yes, if you go into the individual parameters, individual tools, you have the options. I just want to see. So yes, there are some places where you can do. So model customization, you can do it from there. You can also go into the physical tool itself and modify the R code that's behind it. I'm not going to show that now, but you can right click and open the macro and look at what is happening underneath and also modify the parameters that way. Okay, so from my test data, I'm going to put that into my model. So you do this by using the score tool, and you finally predict the target cost of each of these properties. Okay, so this was the traditional method. So let me show you how easy it is now with the Alteryx Intelligence Suite. What I'm going to do is just copy these 2 tools over into a new workflow. And I want to use my machine learning tools. What I'm going to do is use assisted modeling, the assisted modeling tool. Okay, for it to work, I need to first run this workflow. And I hope it's still working. Oh dear. Okay, there it is. Okay. Okay, so this just takes a while to populate. Okay, there we are. Okay, so what I can do now is start my assisted modeling. You have the option to use the expert modeling as well, where you can change all your parameters as required. But I'm going to use the assisted modeling. So now you go into the setup of the assisted modeling tool. Okay, so I'm going to start building. So what is my target variable? It is my target price. And immediately the assisted modeling shows you it's a regression analysis that we will be doing. And we can click next. And again, it just wants you to make sure that you are using the specific target fields that you have in mind. I'm going to continue. Then you have the option to use step-by-step modeling or automatic. So when you select the automatic, the automatic option, it runs everything for you. I myself prefer to use the step-by-step option just because you have more control over the fields that's being excluded or included. I'll show you within the next second. So I'm choosing step-by-step. So now you have the option to choose or to set the data types. So I know the posted by is actually something more like an ID. It won't influence my price in the end, but all the other fields will actually have a possible influence on my model. So let's select next. Okay, also in which I haven't focused on yet is the fact that you have a glossary in each step of your data or each step of this process. So in this case, there's no missing values in my data set. It was a very nice and clean data set and all values included, or let's say all my training data set had prices associated with all values. Okay, so I don't need to clean up any missing values. I'm going to select next. So now we come to a point where we need to select features. Again, I can see the square footage is too highly associated with the target. Alteryx clearly warns me that this is the case, but I know when I exclude it, I'm not going to get a very reliable model in the end. So I want to include it again. You can exclude the type of property just because it has such a weak association with the target in the end. So I'm going to exclude it just because it is not really applicable at the moment. And all the other features or fields are group predictors according to my assisted modeling. So let's select the next option. Okay, so now the assisted modeling tells me there are 3 tools again or 3 models that it will test. It goes through what the pros and cons of each model is. And yeah, so it just gives you the pros and cons, the definition of each model, and also specific use cases. So I'm going to use all three of them and test all three of them. So let's run the selected algorithms. Okay, so in this case, the random forest model won again. It has the lowest root mean square error. And again, in this case, it gives you a very helpful glossary to tell you what each of the terms mean. So let's focus on the root mean square error. It gives you a definition of it and what you are aiming to achieve when you are looking at it. And then there's also a correlation when we are looking at the second field. So in this case, the random forest has a correlation of 0.96, which is very nice and high. So it just means that the model fits my data quite nicely. It is much higher than I got from doing it the manual way. Okay. What is also nice, it gives you a clear winner. So you'll see in next to the random forest root mean square error, you have a little medal that is being shown to show that it is in fact the winner. And then you can go to the overview tab. When you have the specific model selected, you can see what will be happening in each case or how good the model fits your data. So that's overview, the interpretation. So here you can see the feature importance for the model. In this case, whether it was a resale or not is also quite important in the model. And then you can go through the configuration again if you would like. What is really nice is that you can export the report as an HTML report, or you can export the physical model to Python. So I'm going to select this to show you after. So I'm going to select the random forest since it is clearly the best one that works for my data. So I'm going to add my model and continue to the workflow. Sorry, my PC is quite slow at the moment. Okay, so what happened now was Alteryx added a set of tools behind my assisted modeling tool, which goes through the process that we just went through. So we first changed or set the data types, then we cleaned up missing values if it was necessary. We selected the features. There's the option to enable one hot encoding if that is important, sorry. And then it applies the physical regression model. In this case, it is the random forest. Then we're training the model. And finally, we are going to predict the values. So I'm going to bring in my test data set. Just give me a second. Okay. And sorry, I'm just going to mute myself for a second and just need some more. Okay, so I just brought in my test data set. I just want to copy this select tool to change all my data types, or field types anyway. Please don't crash. Oh dear.
Always happens when doing a live demonstration, eh?
It's amazing. Oh,
There
there
we
it
go,
goes.
it's
There it
alive.
goes. Now my Python tool broke. Okay, there it works. Okay, so now I can link this through to my predict values tool, and then I'm going to add a browse and run this workflow. Okay, because the predict values tool is basically expecting the exact type of workflow or exact same type of data set. You don't need to change any parameters. You just need to plug in the data itself. And it will give you a resulting predictive or predicted value of each property. Okay, so after this was done, you can now see the target price that has been predicted. Okay, so firstly, this was much faster than running the previous manual, the traditional method through Alteryx. I think the previous one took something like 8 minutes, where this one took, no, don't say no. This one took like 30 seconds or something to run, which is really nice. And it gives you the predicted values that it shoots out. Okay, so I hope this was quite a clear demonstration of what is possible. Oh, and the Python tool that I wanted to show you. So it literally gives you the Python tools and libraries and things that it is using to create the model. So building the machine learning pipeline, training the model, and output to Designer. So it's a very well documented Python workbook, which you can use however you want to. Okay, so let's head back to the slideshow. Okay, so the next section I want to focus on is the text mining section. So in this case, what is text mining? It is, again, an artificial intelligence branch where it makes use of natural language processing. It uses free unstructured text and converts that into normalized data. So in short, in normal English, it is basically teaching a computer to understand the human language. And on this, I want to add that a language is so much more than just words in sequence. For example, the Yoda picture makes it very clear that syntax is also a very important part of our language. So the text mining tools consist out of 4 main ones. There are other ones that I'll also be showing you. So the text mining, you can use the PDF input tool. These are actually 3 different tools that work together. Sentiment analysis and topic modeling are both tools that are based on unsupervised machine learning. So you point this tool to a specific text field and you let it do its thing. You don't need to do anything. And lastly, you can also create word clouds from your text data. Okay, so let's start with the first tool. So let's look at the traditional Alteryx method for doing PDF parsing. So this is actually a macro that Oliver Clark built. He is one of my colleagues within the information lab. So this is, in effect, a nested macro. This is the first part of the macro. And you'll see second part. And then there's the second part of the macro. So firstly, having to use this requires you to install a specific R package. That is why this error was an error when I tried to take the screenshot, just because I didn't have the package installed on my PC. It's also necessary to make sure all the different parts of this macro is downloaded. And should you use this in a workflow or want to publish it, it becomes quite troublesome trying to keep that maintained and making sure the correct R packages are installed everywhere that you need it. So going to Alteryx again, I'm going to create a new workflow. And this time I'm going to use the text mining tools. Firstly, let's drag the PDF input tool onto the canvas. And I want to point it to a browser, a file that contains quarterly reports for Tesla. So what I did was look for PDF reports that we could use for this demo, and I'm going to use last year's quarterly reports of Tesla. So I'm going to click OK. What I need to do next is create an image template of a specific PDF. So I'm going to open, let's use the quarter two's Tesla PDF input. It will load the whole physical PDF into Alteryx. What we need to do now is specify the fields that we want. Okay, so on page 4 of every PDF, the data is listed in a tabular format. And I'm going to just select 3 different fields that I want to use. So let's use this one first and call it automotive revenues. I'll just call it automotive rev. The second one is the auto gross profit. And let's take the third one as total revenues. Okay, and now I want to bring all the PDFs together and match it to the image template that I just made from that one PDF. So the image is going to be the PDF, and I want the language to be English. So I'm just going to add a browse after and run this. Because the PDFs are quite big and Alteryx processes all of them before giving me the results, this takes a while. So I'm going to continue, and then we can come back to this after. Okay, so the next tool I'm going to focus on is the score or the sentiment analysis option or tool that is included in the Alteryx Intelligence Suite. So again, the traditional method was to go to the Alteryx gallery and download an R-based tool, again created by Ben Moss, a colleague at the Information Lab. So again, like I said, this is an R-based tool using a package which name I can't pronounce for the sentiment analysis. Again, you will need to download the correct package for the tool to be, or the Alteryx workflow to be able to access that R package. And this is also an app. So for you to use this, it is quite a big mission to get into your workflow. So I'm going to show you how easy it is using the text mining tools. So in this case, I'm going to use IMDb reviews. Just give me a second. Okay, let's just drag this on here. I'm going to use IMDb reviews to look at my sentiment analysis. So I'm just going to use the trained data set of that. Okay, the first thing that I need to do is increase the size of my field length because there are some long reviews. Okay, and then I'm also going to limit the number of reviews I'm bringing in. So I'm just going to sample this and let's take the first 1,000 rows and let's put in a sentiment analysis tool. Okay, again, like I said, this is using unsupervised machine learning. It is using the Vader algorithm. The text field in this case is going to be text. You can actually output the categorical sentiment. So in other words, it will define whether it's positive, neutral, or negative for you. And this you can then change by determining what the max negative classification should be or the positive classification. So I'm just going to add a browse after. So looking at what this looks like, it is simply just a big line of text. And because it is this particular data set is used to train supervised machine learning models, we don't really need the label at this time. So I'm just going to run this. And hopefully it won't take too long because the PDF parsing one is still running, as you can see at the back. Okay, great. 30 seconds. That's not too bad. Okay, so what comes out is a score. So it gives a score on the negative sentiment, neutral sentiment, and positive sentiment for that specific review. And then it creates a compound sentiment score. If you did not select to add a physical category like I did here, so output the categorical sentiment, it would not include the sentiment category. But now you can actually see where positive and negative sentiments are in terms of IMDb reviews. Okay, I think it is quite nice to see this in action. Okay, let's look at another tool. So what I want to do now is use another input. So this is tweet analysis, or number of tweets that we use on in a data set on, sorry, this is a number of tweets for the top 50 Twitter profiles. It is one of the data sets we use for our Thursday trainings at 3. So it's nice to actually see this useful for something different than TTT. Okay, so what I want to focus on is the tweet content. I want to use topic modeling and create a word cloud from this data. But before that, I want to apply some text pre-processing. So another thing I want to do is sample the data again. I think this is 150,000 tweets. I'm just going to lessen that a bit. So firstly, I want to convert a number of text fields so I want to convert the number of retweets received to an integer, and also the likes received. And because the size of my string is quite small for a long tweet, I need to make that a bit bigger as well. So I'm going to again make that 1,000 characters. And then I want to sort the number of retweets received descending. And after that, I want to sample the first 10,000 rows. Okay, so now when I run this workflow, only 10,000 rows will be pulled through to my text pre-processing tool. So in this case, I want to use English. The text field I want to analyze is my tweet content, and I can apply text normalization in this tool. I can filter out digits, punctuation, and stop words. So you can use default stop words. So for those that don't know, stop words are basically very common words that you find, like the and within tweets or any natural language. What I also want to include is actually a bunch of additional words, additional stop words, so that I can remove that from any topic modeling or word cloud. So from an experience, or from my experience, I have no idea how to or where to use topic modeling. I've never used it for any type of analysis before, but I heard that it is quite powerful in some sense. I'm not going to go into too much detail. All I can show you is how easy it is. So I'm going to focus on the tweet content field, and I want to separate my tweets into 2 separate topics. I want the output options to be an interactive chart, and then you have some other options, which I don't know anything about. Okay, I also want to include a word cloud. Just on some research that I did on topic modeling, is that in this specific case, it's again unsupervised machine learning. And yeah, it's literally you point it to a field. You have some parameters to change, but it does all the processing behind the scenes. Okay, so the word cloud tool, you point to a specific field. You can also customize the word cloud. I'm going to leave it as it is. And then I'm going to run this workflow. Since the PDF parsing one has finished, I can show you what the output looks like. Okay, so after looking, so what I did firstly was to specify specific fields that I wanted to isolate from every PDF. And there were 4 PDF files, one for each quarter in that folder. And it pulled out the values on page 4 for those specific fields that are specified in each file. Okay, what is necessary now is to actually clean up your data, isolate only the values that have been populated. So it lists all the pages and the fact that it didn't take anything or isolate anything from those. So just filter it out and you have the data that you need. Okay, so okay, likes received, a salad is not a number. Okay, so hopefully that turned into a null. Okay, so let's look at the word cloud that was created. Okay, so a nice word cloud. Hopefully you will be able to use that in some other way. Yeah, okay, and let's look at the topic modeling. So the report that's created shows you the different, the 2 topics. As I said, I know very little about topic modeling and how to apply the analysis. What I can show you as well is the fact that it gives a score for the topic 1 and topic 2. So as you increase the specific or specific topics or add several topics, it will score that accordingly and put the different tweets in different topics. But yes, this was just to show you how easy it is to apply unsupervised machine learning to text data in the end. Okay, so going back to the slideshow. Yeah, so what we learned from this webinar is that machine learning and text mining is possible for anyone. You save a lot of time. So in terms of effort it takes to get everything installed, to use the traditional way of using the tools. So you save a lot of time and money just because you don't need to do the analysis yourself. You can immediately start implementing artificial intelligence in your business because you don't need an expert to help you get this going. And it guides you enough to help you to learn more as you go. So the more you use it, the more you will get to realize where you can change or tweak your models to become an expert in the end. Okay, I hope that answered all your questions, or some of the questions at least, that you have on the Alteryx Intelligence Suite. So let's head to the Q&A. So there has been a question on, is there an easy way to download tweets? Yes, there is. There's actually an API that you can use, a Twitter API. If not that, there's so many other different tools available, I think, freely that you can use to isolate different tweets and topics on tweets. Okay, are there any other questions that you guys have?
Callie's question there says, if I have a bunch of variables, how to pick the set of variables to go into the 3 models? You covered that.
Yes, so depending on what the score is, the way that the assisted modeling tool takes you through setting up your model, it literally tells you which are good fields to include in your model. So you will use that tool in the end to choose which fields to include, yeah.
Cool. I also noticed that there are some tools that you didn't mention in the demo. Would you mind explaining what some of those tools are used for?
Okay, so going back to Alteryx and just going to a new workflow. So I showed you what all the text mining tools are, but in terms of machine learning, there's a couple that we can still look at. Let's actually go to one of, yes, let's go to our previous demo of the physical model. Or yeah. Okay, so what we have here is a classification tool. Because it is going to be part of the assisted modeling tool set, you can't use it without the assisted modeling. And it wasn't used in this case because we didn't use classification, but rather regression analysis in our tools. What we can do is look at data health. So this tool tells you how healthy your data is, how many nulls you have. I'm just trying to get this connected. Okay, so you can then have a report on how healthy your data is. I don't think I should run the whole model again. I'm just going to put this all in a new container and disable it. Okay. So I'm just going to run this data set so that I can see how clean my data is. Okay, so apparently my data needs improvement. So I don't have any missing values. I don't have anything by row. Outlier health by column. Okay, so it picks up quite a lot of outliers, which is interesting. But it obviously tells us I need to look into doing something with my outliers. Okay, then there's also the option to use or to look at feature types. Okay, so you can auto detect it, but you can physically look at what type of field it is. Since you are since it's just leaving it on auto detect, you don't need to do anything unless you specifically want to change that. I'm not going to change anything at the moment. Then there's also a build features tool. I don't know how or when to use this. It is using child and parent tables and setting up new features from that. As I haven't been able to properly play with this, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but it physically allows you to get the median when comparing two tables and do some interesting analysis. So yeah, I'm not going to go into that, but there are a bunch of options that you have playing around with this. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that. I myself still need to play around with these tools to see just what they are capable of. Lou asked, can you output the report for R instead of Python? No. So the tools are solely written in Python. That's why it's so easy to export to Python. So no, you can't.
And there's one last question. What is the cost of the Alteryx Intelligence Suite? I know everyone's dying to find out that answer.
Okay, so the Alteryx Intelligence Suite costs £1,840 per user per year. It, in theory, is quite a lot, but I think the moment you start looking into how much an expert costs at a daily rate, it is quite a minor cost to achieve something that can make a world of difference to your business. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm going to post a link into the chat, which is around the Intelligence Suite free trial. It looks like you potentially get a month free trial to test out the Intelligence Suite as well.
Yeah. And if I know the Information Lab specifically also offers free trials that you can use in the future if you are interested.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, yeah, I don't think, unless there's any other questions from any of our attendees, I think this webinar was fantastic, and understanding how quick and easy those machine learning and text mining tools are. So thank you very much, Nora. Last chance for any other questions from anyone else?
Okay.
Okay, no questions. So thanks again, Nora. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And thanks everyone for joining, and look out for the recording in the next coming days.
Cool.
Thank you.